She lived across the hall, all tattoos, soft eyes, and quiet confidence. I was married, invisible, sleepwalking through my life. We kept running into each other until we stopped pretending it meant nothing. Letting her in woke something I thought I'd buried, and I knew I'd never be the same. If this story stirs something in you, and you want to hear more sensual, slow-burn queer stories, hit the subscribe button. I post daily, and it's just me here, crafting every word, every story, for you. You wouldn't think my life left room for obsession. Not the loud, youthful kind. The spiraling kind, clumsy and unapologetic. No, this was something softer. A quiet bloom in a place long abandoned by spring. I wasn't looking for it, but I noticed her. It started in the hallway. I had lived in this building for 7 years. The same cream walls, the same flickering elevator, the same scent of detergent and fading ambition. My husband, Martin, insisted we stay. Said it was central. Quiet. Perfect for someone like you, he once told me, over breakfast, while I watched his eyes drift past mine to the phone screen. He meant someone who didn't work, someone who didn't disturb the air. I was 35 and fading into a neutral palette. Pale skin, light lashes, hair I kept straight now, too thin to wear loose, too long to cut short. I wore soft grays, long sleeves, ballet flats. I rarely put on lipstick. I wasn't unhappy. I was invisible. It's different. And then one morning, the elevator opened, and she was there. She was all wrong for this place. Boyish, beautiful, leaning with her shoulder against the wall like she owned the metal box. Her hair was short, dark, and carelessly perfect, tousled, wet at the endings like she'd just stepped out of the shower. Her forearms were lined with ink, whimsical, colorful tattoos that moved when she adjusted the strap of her grocery bag. She wore a threadbare red flannel over a tight black sports bra and low jeans, and her skin looked freckled, warm, alive. She nodded at me with this slow, unreadable smile, and then a soft, "Hi." That was all. But it lingered. I went back upstairs holding my breath. I stood in the kitchen and stared out the window, my tea untouched. I didn't know her name. I didn't know if she lived alone. But something inside me shifted, not with panic, not even with guilt. It was subtler. A door, long shut, clicking open. Days passed, then weeks. We ran into each other again in the corridor, then in the elevator. We always did, somehow. She was always dressed like that. Effortless. A boy's shirt rolled at the sleeves, jeans hanging low on her hips, tank tops that revealed the soft rise of her collarbone. I noticed things I hadn't let myself notice in years. The sharpness of her jaw, the way she pulled her sleeves up with her teeth while unlocking her door, the curve of her lips when she smirked at the old woman's Pomeranian down the hall. I watched her, quietly, never too long, but long enough to feel a heat under my skin that I hadn't felt in years. I started imagining things. At first, it was just her voice, rough but low, whispering something close to my neck. Then her fingers, trailing my wrist, brushing the inside of my elbow. Her palms under my shirt, her breath against my cheek. I saw myself pinning her against the elevator wall, heard the clink of buttons against metal, felt the thrill of being caught, even if only by the blinking overhead light. Sometimes I'd wake with her name, though I didn't know it, still on my lips. Martin noticed nothing. He never did. He kissed my cheek out of habit when he left for work. He made dinner plans with clients without checking with me. He brought me flowers once, tulips, my least favorite, and called it a surprise. I never told him otherwise. I didn't want him to try. What would he have seen in me anyway? I was no longer the girl he married, and I wasn't the woman from 5B. Still, I began changing. At first, small things, lipstick in a muted rose, a shirt that clung to my ribs, perfume that smelled like spice and wood instead of lilies. I found myself lingering in front of the mirror, brushing my hair until it shone, straightening it into order. Once I passed her at the mailbox, and she looked me up and down and said, "Nice dress." I thanked her, I barely got the words out. My knees felt liquid for an hour after. One night I dreamt I pressed her back into the couch, that her hands were under the hem of my sweater, that her mouth found the hollow of my throat. I woke gasping, tangled in sheets, my husband snoring beside me. I lay still, the heat between my legs pulsing like a bruise. She'd done nothing but say hello. But I was drowning in her. I began timing my errands to hers, listening for the elevator door, watching her shoes under her door frame's shadow. Once I heard her laugh, deep, unself-conscious, echoing down the stairwell. I stood at my door, hand on the handle, frozen. I told myself I was too old for this, that I wasn't the kind of woman who cheated, that even if I wanted to, and I did, God, I did, it wouldn't matter. She was just being kind. She probably thought I was lonely. She'd have been right. And then, one afternoon, the elevator stopped between floors. It jolted. The lights flickered. And there she was, right beside me, our arms nearly touching. She looked over, calm, and said, "It does that sometimes." My throat went dry. I nodded. "I haven't seen you in a few days." Her lips curved. "You noticed?" I did. I always did. And in that suspended second, with no buzzing phones or ticking clocks or husbands or errands, I saw something settle in her eyes, something hungry, something familiar. The elevator kicked back on, but I knew without question that I wasn't alone in this. The elevator moved again, humming faintly beneath our feet. I stood very still, my fingers curled lightly around the strap of my bag. Her body was so close I could feel the warmth of her arm through my sleeve. She hadn't stepped away. Neither had I. She looked forward again, but the air between us felt different now. Less polite. More aware. When the doors opened, we stepped out together in silence. I nodded a faint goodbye, unsure what expression my face was making. She didn't say anything either, but her mouth curved ever so slightly before she turned toward her door, keys already in hand. I walked into my apartment in a daze. The light in the hallway buzzed overhead. My flat scuffed the floor as I entered the kitchen, but I didn't register any of it. I just stood there, staring at nothing, hand still on my bag strap, like I hadn't let go of her presence. I should have done something, said something, asked her name. But all I could think about was the look in her eyes, that slow, steady knowing. As if she'd already read the script I was only now discovering. That night, I lay in bed next to Martin, who was turned away, breathing heavily. I studied the back of his shoulder. A clean, impersonal line under a navy shirt. He hadn't kissed me goodnight. I hadn't expected him to. My mind replayed the elevator again. The almost touch, the moment her mouth moved, and the words she left hanging between us. "You noticed?" Yes. I did. I began looking for her more deliberately after that. I found reasons to take the trash out mid-afternoon, to pick up groceries I didn't need. I timed the elevator without realizing it, listening for the soft mechanical whir behind the wall. My days, once measured by chores and hours spent rearranging bookshelves, were now split into windows where she might appear. And sometimes she did, always casually, as though it meant nothing. A flannel shirt open over a tank top, that same worn leather messenger bag over one shoulder, tattoos that shifted and told stories as she moved, a faint shadow of cologne, smoky, herbal, unfamiliar, and distracting. Once we passed each other by the mailbox. She held her phone in one hand, a brown paper bag in the other. As she opened the mailbox, she tilted her head and said, "You okay?" I blinked, surprised. "Yes. Just a long day." "You look good, though." She smiled just a little. "That lipstick suits you." It was the same muted rose I'd started wearing more often. My heart skipped like I was 17 again. "Thanks," I managed, suddenly breathless. "You too." She laughed, not mockingly, but amused, warm. Her thumb brushed the corner of her lip as if she were remembering something. "You are funny." I wasn't trying to be, but I smiled anyway, because I didn't know what else to do with the energy rising in my chest. She stepped closer, just briefly, our arms brushed. Then she walked past me toward the stairs, calling over her shoulder, "See you around." And I stood there, in my long knit dress and cardigan, lips tingling, skin humming. In the mirror above the entry table, I caught my own reflection. My straightened hair looked too deliberate. My cheeks were flushed. But my eyes, those betrayed me. They glowed with something I hadn't seen in years. Want. Not boredom, not nostalgia. Want. That night, I sat on the couch with the lights low and no TV on. Just silence and the soft tick of the radiator. I kept imagining what her hands might feel like pressed against my back, if she would kiss slowly or like she meant to leave a mark. I thought about how her breath might taste, what she'd do if I whispered that I wanted her, had wanted her for weeks now, maybe from the first second. I felt the longing like a hunger, not just for her touch, but for her gaze, her laughter, her presence in a world that had otherwise gone grayscale. I closed my eyes and let it build inside me. I didn't fight it anymore. The rain started early that evening. A soft drizzle at first, turning heavier as the sky darkened. Martin was away on a business dinner, some quarterly celebration or client thing. I didn't ask. He offered a kiss on the cheek as he left, already checking his watch as the door clicked shut behind him. I sat by the window, the glass misting over. The city below blurred, the wet streets flickering red and gold under traffic lights. I had a book open in my lap, but wasn't reading. I was listening. And when I heard the elevator groan and settle, that soft, familiar thud of its doors, I stood. I didn't plan it. I didn't grab an umbrella. I didn't even know what I was doing until I stepped into the hallway and saw her there, shaking out her jacket in front of the mailboxes. She turned, surprised at first. Then her expression softened. "Hey," she said, brushing a curl off her forehead. Her cheeks were damp from the rain, flushed slightly pink. "You caught me looking like a mess. You look—" I stopped myself. "You look like you." She grinned. "That's good, I think." We both laughed, and I felt the nerves jittering in my hands. We stepped into the elevator together, and the moment the doors shut, something shifted. Not just tension this time, not possibility. Electricity. The lights flickered. She looked up. "Seriously?" And then the power stopped. The elevator stilled, humming once before going silent. Emergency lighting glowed faintly from the corners, tinting her face gold and soft. She pressed the stop button and leaned back against the wall. "I've been thinking about doing this," she said, voice quiet but deliberate. I looked at her, my breath caught. "Doing what?" Her eyes didn't leave mine. "Telling you that I see you, that I've seen you." I stood frozen. She continued. "I thought maybe I was imagining it. You noticing me, but I don't think I was." "No," I said softly. "You weren't." A moment passed. The air grew thicker. She stepped closer. So did I. There was no rush, no dramatic sweep, just stillness. Her hand found my waist. Mine rested against her shoulder. And then, slowly, gently, our lips met. The kiss was soft, but the world sharpened all around it. The scent of rain clung to her skin. Her hand at my hip was steady, grounding me, as if she already knew how I'd tremble. My lips parted just enough for her to breathe me in. When we pulled away, our foreheads touched. I let out a slow breath I didn't know I'd been holding. She smiled, her thumb brushing the side of my neck. "Hi," I laughed. It came out breathy, giddy, like a sound I hadn't made in years. "Hi." The lights returned. The elevator jerked once, continuing upward. But the world had already tilted. We didn't move apart. Not immediately. We stood there until the doors opened on our floor. I stepped out first, my heart pounding like it might give me away. She followed, slower, brushing her fingers against mine before slipping into her apartment. When I got inside, I leaned against the door and closed my eyes. The echo of the kiss still lingered on my mouth. I touched it lightly with my fingertips. Something had changed, not imagined, not fantasized, changed. And I didn't feel afraid. I felt alive. After the kiss in the elevator, something changed between us. It wasn't sudden, not in the way passion is sometimes painted. It was quieter than that. It moved like light through sheer curtains, soft, steady, impossible to ignore. We began spending time together in ways that didn't need explanation. Short walks after groceries, a coffee on my balcony when Martin was away. Conversations that started with nothing and turned into everything. I learned that her name was Lena. She was 31. She used to be a climbing instructor before she moved into the city. She'd left something behind that she didn't want to talk about yet. She liked rainy days, black coffee, and made her own hummus. Her laugh was warm and rare. Her voice had a steadiness to it, like it was holding something back and always would. I began to rearrange my world around small, unscheduled moments. A knock on my door, the flick of her keys, the way she'd lean against my kitchen counter while I poured tea, stealing glances like we were still learning the shape of what we had. It happened one evening during a city-wide blackout. I lit candles while the wind pressed against the windows. The apartment felt warmer, more intimate in the shadows. She knocked, already holding a flashlight and a half-empty bottle of red wine. "Thought you might not want to sit in the dark alone," she said. We sat on the stairs in the hallway, wrapped in blankets, sipping from mismatched mugs. The conversation was soft and aimless, dipping into dreams and half-told memories. At one point, she looked at me for a long time, her expression unreadable. "I keep trying to remind myself this isn't a good idea," she whispered. "I know, but I don't want to stop." I only moved closer. There on the steps, in the golden flicker of candlelight and flashlight shadows, our lips met again. No urgency, just a need. My hand settled gently at her jawline, fingers brushing the short curls at her nape. Hers slid around my waist, tentative at first, then sure. Back inside my apartment, the hush continued. We didn't rush. Lena touched me like she was learning a language, palms soft on my ribs, fingers skimming the length of my spine. Her breath warm against my collarbone. I let my forehead rest against hers, both of us still half-dressed. I could feel the rhythm of her heart where our chests pressed together. We whispered each other's names, not as declarations, but as permission. Nothing felt wrong, only fragile, like glass between us. We moved slowly, carefully, fully clothed, except for little things. A button undone, a sleeve pushed up, hands under fabric, warm skin, breath that trembled with restraint. We didn't need to finish anything. We weren't trying to arrive. We just stayed there, suspended in something sacred. Afterward, we lay side by side. Her hand rested lightly on my hip. I stared at the ceiling, aware of every inch of her beside me. The heat of her skin, the scent of rain still caught in her hair, the silence wrapped around us. "I don't know what happens next," I said. She didn't answer right away, just traced a slow circle on my arm. "I don't either," she said finally. "But this was real, wasn't it?" "Yes." That was the last night I saw her. 2 days later, her door was shut and her mailbox empty. I knocked once, waited, knocked again. Nothing. At first, I told myself she was just gone for the weekend, visiting someone, getting air. But when Monday came and the hallway stayed silent, no soft footsteps, no rustle of her messenger bag, no sound of keys hitting metal, I knew. She had left. No note, no goodbye. I stood outside her apartment one more time, just stood, then walked back to mine and closed the door. I didn't cry right away, not out loud. But that night, I stared at the same ceiling where she'd once whispered my name, and the space beside me felt louder than any silence I'd known. Martin never asked about the sudden quiet in me. He assumed I was tired. I told him I was. And then, I picked up the lipstick again. I brushed my hair until it lay straight and smooth. I stood a little longer in front of mirrors, not searching for beauty, but for presence. I wanted to see myself. What Lena had given me wasn't just stolen kisses or touches under fabric. She gave me a mirror, polished clean. She reminded me that I still felt, that I could want, that I existed outside the small life I'd been handed and told to keep tidy. Some nights, I still hear the elevator groan. I still wait for footsteps in the corridor. But what she left behind isn't absence. It's awakening. And I carry that with me, quietly, like a secret under my skin.